Melissa, probably somebody that's listening to this podcast, they're listening to what you and Lynn have shared, and all of a sudden in their mind, the light bulb's clicking off. Wait a minute. How would a person know that they have been impacted by trauma themselves?
Yeah, and just like we talked about how it's a wound and we compared it to a physical wound, there's degrees of severity, when we're dealing with trauma. So on the more severe end of the scale, Dr. Johns, spoke to some of those things where a person may have, it's more these subconsciously spawned behaviors that a person isn't necessarily thinking, okay, I'm going to get startled, so they're going to have anxiety, probably panic attacks, hypervigilance, hyperarousal, startle response that is easily triggered. There's intrusive symptoms such as flashbacks, nightmares, night terrors, these gripping, terrible dreams that someone almost feels like they can't wake up from, even intrusive and obsessive thoughts. And some of the other responses can look more like avoidance, withdrawing, isolating from people, withdrawing, isolating from triggers or environmental cues related to the trauma. Because what happens is that traumatic event indelibly encrypts all the information from the event in the person's mind. So sensory data, certain smells, sights, sounds, maybe it was a bright sunny day, maybe it was cold, any of that gets wrapped up in the whole package, which we call the trigger. And so that gets stored, so that person might want to, avoid something that's going to not consciously remind them of the trauma, but subconsciously remind them of the trauma. And kind of on the lesser end of the scale, kind of speaking to, grief and loss and things that we're all going to go through, neglect, rejection, hurts and pains, that's where maybe someone's experiencing a disconnect from what they know intellectually and what they feel emotionally. They might say to their spouse, you don't love me, you don't love me. They may, feel very unsafe and get caught up in behaviors that just don't match and fit the particular situation or level of life. Again, things revolving around safety or significance or value, belonging. Something else too is just basically, having worked with a lot of people at this point, when people have been through something, a loss or a death, and they've never really talked to anyone, that's one of the things I ask: who have you talked to about this? Have you cried? Have you grieved? Because there's certain core things that need to happen, that those shades of anger, shades of sadness, sharing our story. Either some people prefer through writing, some people prefer through speaking, but these are some things that if they haven't shared their pain, if they haven't grieved, if they haven't been able to get perspective, not necessarily accept what happened, but accept that it happened, these are all kind of different cues and signs that maybe they're dealing with unresolved trauma or loss.
So you've unpacked a little bit about some of the effects of trauma and helping people identify what trauma is all about. What are the factors that influence how a person responds to trauma?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think I'm going to answer it by giving two examples. We've heard of a tale of two cities. We'll call this a tale of two ladies. Let's say a woman is walking to the Mac machine and she gets attacked, she gets mugged. She's got a cell phone. Somebody in the bank sees it, the police respond immediately. The guy is apprehended soon after. She goes home to a house where she has a husband who's present, who cares, who's engaged. She's got health insurance that offers counseling sessions that are affordable. She's plugged in at her church, has good support, gets cards and calls from people that she's connected with, and so she may not have the need to professionally process what she's been through, but she's processing it with her family, with her friends, with her safe people. And let's kind of contrast that to the lady who, same situation, but maybe she lives in the city and the police response is delayed. She comes home to an empty house. And then, or maybe we could say she has children that are depending on her, so she's not only not able to process what she's been through, she's taking care of other people. So Lynn was talking about post-traumatic stress, and there's post-traumatic stress, and then there's post-traumatic stress disorder. And so we all kind of experience stress and negative effects when we've been through something, but in a healthy way, if we're able to calm down and process that, it doesn't turn into what's the actual, disorder in a sense. So, and another, let's say that this second woman has mental illness or previous mental health issues that she's struggling with. And maybe the guy's never caught her. If he is caught, he gets off on a technicality through the court system. So you can just see how many factors interpersonally, intrapersonally within the person, in their environment, at home, their environment in a sense where they live, and just the overall response, and all these factors can kind of interplay and really, so let's say take a level 4 trauma and make it a level 8 experientially, or really take a level 4 trauma and, within a month or two, that's resolved, which would be like the case with me with the attempted break-in. This is something that had been resolved, because a lot of positive factors were in place.